You are listening to iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 983. My name is Dr. Ryan Haupt, sitting in for Connor Kilpatrick, and my co-host this week is Dr. Josh Flanagan.
Oh, I mean, I should be, clearly. Like, I think, like...
I would say you're like, if there was a doctorate for podcasting, you should have that. Like, well, you put in your 10,000 hours.
It's true. I should get some sort of honorific one, I think.
Yeah, well, you'd have to give a commencement address at Podcast University.
That's pretty much what Ithaca is at this point, I think.
There you go. So yeah, get them to invite you back for commencement, and they'll give you an honorary doctorate.
It's a terrible idea. I'd give a great speech.
I believe that. Welcome to iFanboy 2025. It's our 20th year of doing the show for all of us. Everyone here has been doing this for 20 years. And our 25th year of doing iFanboy. That means that every week for 25 years, one of us has picked the book they liked the best from their stack of comics, and we call that the pick of the week. We're going to talk about that book, other books in the week, the Patron Pick, listener mail, and it's going to be fun. I'm tired of people saying it's not going to be fun, because it is going to be
listen to me. You will have fun.
Now, you might remember from my last appearance that Josh Flanagan joked that when I'm on the show, I usually have the pick. But guess what? This week, Josh had the pick.
Switched it up. Crazy.
You never know what we're going to do.
You don't know what's going to happen, okay? It's crazy. Actually, you know what? I was just thinking about it. And if you've been watching the show, you might know what the pick is. And
it's in the episode title.
Well, also just, picking the Fantastic Four, number 33 or number 726. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. We've done it a lot. I've said all the things about it, and this was the last book I read.
Wow.
And I didn't have a clear, I liked a lot of books for sure. And I finished it and I looked at everything else I could to try to make this not the pick of the week. But it was so good. It was stupid good. For two reasons. So the story here is that we are at the end stage of trying to get Ben Grimm's Rockitude back. Is
that a technical term?
Yeah, it's Rockitude. Valeria finally thinks of something and reads like, that's not possible. And then they said, but what if? But the whole thing was, here's the two things. The one is that the plan is to take them back to the very moment of the Big Bang where they think they can't affect anything with the timeline. Which, but that comes with a lot of problems that they have to solve using their fake comic book science, but that's kind of like real science. And then the second part of it, the real thing that really puts you over the top is that this issue is narrated by Herbie, the robot, who puts, finds himself involved in the story in a very meaningful way. And also, because of the way that this works, at first he's just saying, I'm happy to serve these guys. These guys help people, so therefore I'm helping people. He's a robot. He has been made not like a dog. Like, as long as my people are happy, then I'm happy.
We just talked about this. I think you need to put the cover up. I think that's the thing that's supposed to happen.
I told you that was going to happen. Told you. Jesus. I'm not used to doing it. I'm used to talking.
I understand.
I can do one thing.
Took me a minute too.
I can do one thing at a time. And also I'm making up what I'm saying entirely. So
you used to write it down. It used to be a written review.
Yeah, pretty much just wrote it down the same way I'm talking. It was the same thing. Just threw it up. Formed paragraphs in my head as I went. So the deal is that in order to do this job, they have to pop into the moment of the Big Bang, and because of the forces and the elements and the whatnot, they would all be destroyed. So they're only going to be there for nanoseconds. But the only way to do that, no human can think or move that quickly. So they need a supercomputer to take them there. And they think, let's make Herbie into a supercomputer. So you feel, you understand him that he is getting smarter by the moment through the whole thing, and he's speeding up, and his personality doesn't change at all, but he sort of comes to understand the feelings that he has. And just like the great film Interstellar, what he learns, the secret of all love, of all life and creation, is love.
Isn't that also the lesson of Wall-E, which is maybe a more appropriate for Herbie?
Yeah, I think that could be the case. I will say I have seen Interstellar a lot more than I've seen Wall-E, but yeah.
I know some people who do not like Interstellar, and they're wrong.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. They're completely wrong, and it doesn't even matter if it's correct or not. It doesn't matter if it's dumb science or whatever. Like, fucking riveting every time. Anyway, so you go through all this, and I, the dramatic science adventure part of it is really good because of a couple of reasons. Because of the way that comic books work, they're there for nanoseconds. They're there for less time than it would take for a human thought to process anything. And because you have pages and you can draw time out in any way you want, they made that situation last for a long time. When I say they, Ryan North and Corey Smith on pencils, inks by Wayne Faucher, colors by Jesus Vertov, Joe Caramana, one love. The sort of storytelling, the idea that you can place this really dramatic and suspenseful story in something that takes place in a second. Like, the idea is like, we're going to disappear from this room that we're in our time machine, and before you even know it, we'll be back. Like literally. And they all have to use their powers, and when they get there, everything starts to go wrong. I mean, it's pages and pages that we see within this. Like 6 pages we see within these nanoseconds. And it was really suspenseful. Like, I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I mean, I know they're not going to die, but we could have gone in all sorts of spots. And then there is one amazing shot, and is when they're all loading up into the time machine here. Oh yeah, and they got Herbie seat belted in, and he looks so happy. He's just there to help. And then also notice the Kirby designs around the thing in the middle. That's the Kirby flux capacitor, I think.
Herbie's an acronym, right? It stands for something.
Yeah, and they read it out in here, but I don't remember it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely in here. Wait, okay. I can't spend airtime doing that, but that's definitely a thing. Lots of big dumb comic book science that when Ryan North does it, seems like it's rooted in something.
Humanoid experimental robot B-type integrated electronics.
Yeah, there's Stan Lee doing his thing right there. By the way, like, credit where due. Stan catches a lot of knocks, because of a lot of things, but that's pure Stan, and it's pretty fantastic. Yeah, I just, at the end, I was like, I had more fun and was more impressed by that and was touched by it more than anything else I read, for sure. And I think, that the art team, came together and did a great job of the whole thing. The cover's even fun, that sort of right stuff thing. Cover. Yeah. And gets his powers back.
I really liked the epilogue scene. There's a ghost, I think a Patasaurus in the yard from when Reed and Ben released all the ghosts from the basement. So I like that that's sort of just still happening. But then just, I don't know, we're dads. I like the idea of sitting out under a tree with my kid and looking at the stars, and like Reed puts his arm around Val, and it's just a very sweet moment. And I'm like, it's nice. It was
just a really sweet one shot, but that was actually the, it was the end of that story that we were dealing with. It's funny because that scene that, like, I think it's very interesting how they can write Val to be like a kid and a super genius. So you've got these two super geniuses as a parent, as a father and a daughter. And so it kind of levels it out. Like, they're still parents, even though they're both super geniuses. Yeah, I really loved it. And then, apparently Herbie created all life and existence in the universe. Oops. That's the spoiler. Guess.
Good job,
but
Herbie.
It is adorable. Yeah. But that's not all. And you know what? We don't do this ever. We're Star Wars cornering it. We're front loading Star Wars corner. That is an all new thing.
Stormtroopers are hitting the ground with this revelation.
Yeah. So you're with me on Legacy of Vader here, right? You have
no, actually, I've not been reading this.
Oh my God.
This is the first I'm hearing of it, and I'm excited to get caught up.
Ryan, this is the only one left.
I know. I didn't know.
I mean, there's other books, but it's the only one worth reading for sure. So what you got here is Kylo Ren off on an odyssey of sorts to try to understand his grandfather, Anakin Skywalker, whom you may know as Darth Vader. So he finds his way over to Mustafar.
Wait, but I thought Vader killed Anakin.
That's what your father said. I don't remember what the line was. I know. That's what your father said. I don't remember. So he goes to Mustafar and he fucks shit up because he's a ragey little kid, Kylo Ren, and he meets a Bomar monk, head in a jar attached to a big robot spider body. And he's like, I'm gonna show you something, kid. And so they go on a tour of Vader's life, and he ends up in Naboo, where he's trying to understand it, and he tells the Empire to destroy Naboo, and then he fights back the Empire as sort of their like revolutionary leader, so that he can, I forget why, but it was kind of funny. And then in the end, he kills them all. All of the Star Wars books at Marvel are not awesome right now. And this is the last one that Charles Soule is involved with. The main Star Wars book is Boredom City. And there is something about the few people, Greg Pak, Charles Soule, who are writing these books and doing the right kind of job on it. I don't know how else to sort of explain it.
More like the right kind of job on it, am I right?
What's your Star Wars comic policy at this point?
I got very burnt out on Star Wars, and I've had a number of people so I was only reading the main book for a while. It ended, the new version of it I'm not as into. So that was the only book I was reading, and me too. I was completely off on all the shows. I finally started Andor season 2 just because I kept getting told that it was worth checking out. And it's kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of back for Naboo. I'm kind of into Naboo again. Like I've turned a corner. And
this is then the thing this is gonna work for you.
I really like. I did glance through this, even though I'm not caught up on the series, and I really like the page 15 on your digital reader that has a bunch of stitched together different kinds of starfighters. So it's got like a Naboo, Naboo starfighter with TIE fighter wings. It's got an X-wing with TIE fighter wings. It's got a TIE fighter with Naboo parts. Like it just looks. It's got a Naboo X-wing fighter.
It's pretty fantastic. It's
anytime it feels like I could have taken apart my toys and put them back together this way, like that is cool to me.
Yeah, this was what they could scrap together. Ancient, decades old, the space fleet that they used to attack. Well, it's not a Star Destroyer. What are they called now? I don't know. This is fun. The Star Wars books to me are like the great equalizer for creators. If you're good and you have the skill, you can pull it off. If you're both for
story and art.
Yeah.
It's like it takes a certain artist to be able to do the licensed property where there are real actors that you're portraying in your imagery.
Yes. And it might be that those people are not like the best artists out there, but you have to be right for it. But if you think about it, like Star Wars comics have been going on forever. They were Dark Horse forever. Most of them weren't good. Like they were kind of impossible to read for a long time. And then every time, if you look, there's a lot of B-team Star Wars books that have come up from Marvel. I'm so sorry if you're listening to this, if you write one of those or whatever, but they've all been fine, but not compelling, but when they put like,
well, there's a certain element of any of these books, you're going to be spinning your wheels because there's never been a book or a TV show set after Rise of Skywalker. So like you're only telling stories of what came before or what came in between, which means that this, and I know like comic books being soap operas, the status quo, returning to the status quo is already built in, but like you can't fundamentally change anything that would make that character different by the time they show up in the next movie or show.
And this takes place between 8 and 9.
Because Kylo doesn't make it past the end of 9.
Yeah, well, he killed Snoke, it says. So that was that was in 8. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So again, same thing. You know where we're going, but you get chance to explore the character, which isn't exactly true, but they managed
somehow Emperor Palpatine returned.
Right, but they made it work with Vader really well. I guess I was reading those two books. I was reading Darth Vader and Star Wars for the longest time, and they were good. And
Vader down.
Yep. That was all great, but as soon as it's very apparent when people kind of just can't do it. Because it becomes entirely uncompelling immediately.
Let's take a quick break, and then we'll have more comics to talk about right after this.
All right, and we're back, and that brings us to Changes Slide. New History of the DC Universe #1. Mark Waid did this for Marvel a job for which he was not as qualified as he was to do the DC one, but also overqualified compared to everybody else. Todd Knock and Jerry Ordway through here. What'd you think of this guy?
I enjoyed it. Sorry, we have so many different apps these days. I'm having to navigate my way to it.
I see.
So that's why I'm distracted at the moment.
If I was smart, I would arrange them in such a way that we wouldn't have to do it, like when you make the shopping list. But either way, I will tell you that I worry that a thing like this can be very dry and therefore not super compelling. And I think, pleasantly surprised that wasn't the case. Even though it pretty much is show and tell, pretty much all there's not a narrative, but I'm actually a little light on the DC universe. And so this brought things together that I kind of didn't have a context for. It's like he's taking all the disparate things that are part of the DC universe and putting them into a timeline, basically, before the heaven and earth God created, what it's this, and then where the Shazam people fit into that, and where, Anthro and Eclipso. I had no idea that Eclipso was like an immortal fallen angel. Who knew? Did you read it?
Yeah. I mean, but I feel like maybe I have a little bit better toe in the DC universe. So this did feel more reviewy for me. I don't know. I struggle with books like this because I feel like, okay, it's the new history of the DC universe, but it's also for now. Like it's not not set in stone. It's literally a rewrite of history that will get rewritten again. So I don't want to say it feels like a complete exercise in futility, but I often wonder, like, who benefits from this book existing? Is there somebody? Maybe you do. Maybe you're getting context and history that you weren't aware of. So I sometimes wonder who these books are for.
Well, when I was a kid, I loved them, but I don't think we have kids like that anymore because there wasn't Wikipedia. But you're right. It's an exercise, and I kind of enjoyed the exercise in a way because you're watching somebody stitch an infinite amount of things together into a straight line, that creates this thing. And I find that kind of impressive. And it's sort of a quick tour. And the other part is you had the two artists. You had Todd Knock, who's more of a 90s, early 2000s style guy, great artist. And then you have Jerry Ordway, legend. Younger folks may be like, I don't know, I don't get that guy's art. That guy's art is great. That guy brings together like everything that it's like Kurt Swan meets Dave Gibbons, and then is his own thing. And I think it's fun to just see that guy getting some work and putting down these sort of stories and they're just splash pages that sort of show you all this stuff. I think it's a nice little romp. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed the Marvel one, to be honest with you. Maybe that was the deal, is I knew the Marvel stuff better. So with this, I was,
No, we don't have the person with us who might have the quicker answer to this, but do we know how many issues this is going to be? Like how? I
believe on the cover it says of 4.
Did it? It does say of 4.
It does.
Small little letters. You're right.
Yep. With a lovely Chris Samnee.
Excellent. I mean, very Darwin Cook.
Yeah, I actually at first I was like, did they find a piece of Darwin Cook art? I literally thought that when I first saw this cover. But no, that was not the case. Let's continue escaping. Wait. Oh, good Lord. Nope. Everybody got to see all of it. I don't know how that happened, but it's not there right now. So give me a moment. We can talk about Out of Alcatraz number 4.
Sounds good. I'm happy to kick things off. I am loving this series. I think it might be my favorite thing that Christopher Cantwell has done, and I've liked a lot of stuff that he's done. This is the penultimate issue, I believe. I believe issue 5 is going to be our final issue, and this issue is called Whiskey Town, which is the reference to some sort of ghost western town in California. I like when California gets treated as a locality for westerns. I feel like that doesn't happen often enough, even though California is very much, once you're off the coast, you're sort of in the West in that cultural sense. This issue, we have the 2 agents, the FBI agent and the guy who was formerly a marshal but has since admitted to his partner in both the crime solving and the romantic sense, that he has left the Marshal Service because he couldn't handle the BS of being a closeted man in the 60s. And so I thought this was a really strong issue for those two characters. They kind of are now fully invested in finding these guys, even though the FBI has declared the escapees from Alcatraz having drowned in the bay and are not interested in looking into it further. And it's reads very much like a true crime book. And the interesting thing is it's based on a crime that was truly happened, but we're taking it. And, I said this when we talked about the first issue, which was the pick. They're taking it and running with it and extending out the story in a way that I find really interesting. I thought there was a great scene in terms of dialogue between I can't remember anyone's name, but between the dark-haired escapee and the black woman in the house in Whiskey Town, where they kind of imagine a life that could have been for the two of them, even though they've not gotten along this entire book. And there's just, it's the violence is visceral. It's the story is compelling. It's not really a mystery book, but like there are characters who are trying to solve a mystery within the book. And I'm excited to see how it wraps up.
I liked that. Like we finally got to know something about them. The woman in particular, like we didn't know really anything about her. She was just mad all the time. And so we got a little of her backstory. And obviously, like, if you're a black woman in this world at that time, your life was probably pretty difficult, and she has all of these other reasons, that it's kind of actually a really simple story about how she got screwed by the system. And I thought that was,
she tried really to get a house by lying about being white in an area that was redlined. And for folks who don't know, redlining was the practice of denying mortgages to black people to keep them out of the neighborhood. And so she lied and tried to pass herself off as white and got caught and got accused of mortgage fraud, lost the deposit, which, like, I've had to put a deposit on a house. That is a heartbreaking amount of money if you don't get the house at the end of it. And I really liked the story arc with the guy's wife that they're supposed to kill, but they're clearly not interested in killing her. But she's very, very willing to wake up on the side of violence.
I thought that was great. There was like he's trying to be nice to her, but also like there's a lot of tension there because basically the job is they're supposed to kill this woman, and the one guy walks her out to the tree, and you're like, that's what you do when you're going to kill somebody. And they sit down, and he's trying to be cool. And I was like, there's so much threat here. Same thing I kind of talked about, a different way of doing it, but the suspense that is happening within comic book pages is always impressive to me. And that was a suspenseful bit. And therefore, when she reacts the way she does and hits him with the Coke bottle, and by the way, those bottles are thick. Like those Coke bottles are no joke.
Oh, I mean, there's a scene later on where they're still picking bits of glass out of his face.
Yeah. But how you break that on somebody's head, you really got it. But either way, like it was surprising.
She was drunk. She had drunk strength. Also, Tyler Crook is doing an amazing job on the art.
Yeah,
I think these issues,
colors, and letters.
It looks fantastic. We talked the last time I was on the show. We talked about Dustin McGuinn's watercolor texture pages. Tyler Crook's doing something similar. So like the way the colors kind of seep onto the page is really pretty. And again, it's. We say this all the time, but it remains true. When you're doing a book that's not people in costumes, it's just people in suits with, different haircuts, but you can keep them all distinct looking. That's skillful. That takes.
It is. And also like all of the males are basically, white guys about the same age, about the same size. And he still manages to, I know who I'm looking at.
But it's great that like Clarence and John look like brothers. I believe that those two guys are brothers with each other.
Yeah. And then Big Wag Wolf shows up at the end, and you're like, oh shit, you know what it means because you've been watching. And there's a lot of good stuff about it, and it's one of those things like I don't understand how this book is being published right now, but I understand why it's at Oni and not somewhere else. So like, well, we can try this.
It's very good. It may well have been my pick if I'd had the pick this week.
I can see that. I think that'd be the case. And with that, we will once again return in just a minute after this. We are back then. Let us move along. I should learn to turn this off before. Oh my God. No, I know what happened. Actually, I skipped a thing. I took a thing out. So we're going to move into Lazarus Fallen. then go from there. Okay, are you a Lazarus person?
Yes, I am a Lazarus person.
Yeah, okay. So you were not in danger of being put up against the wall back in its heyday.
No, I was not.
Okay, good. I didn't know this was coming because how would I? I don't pay attention to any of that stuff. But also I was a little worried because it has been a very long time. And the last time they came back, they were due, because this will be the third sort of iteration of it. And this is the final volume. I think he said in the back there's 9 of them, something like that. They're pretty far. No, it's more than that. It was like 14 or something like that. Anyway, and they had been like a longer sort of like a treasury size sort of before, where like they put like 2.5 issues in each one.
Right. They were trying to do like mini trades,
right?
Almost.
And that didn't work either. By the way, if you have been a Greg Rucka fan for a long time, none of this scheduling stuff is weird to you. It just goes along with it. But either way, end of the day, I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I was about to skip past it, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to read this little paragraph in the beginning here that they were nice enough to give to me. And it was very broad, but I remembered it enough. This is a 20-issue run. And Michael's about halfway through issue 8 at the time this was written in the back. So he's about halfway. So hopefully we get a good stretch of runway here. But I like getting my bearings on it was really quick. I remembered who people were pretty quickly. And it was like going home. It was like being back inside this great book. But what was also great was that we have advanced now forever. And what's her name? Infinity, something like that. The younger forever.
Longevity.
They're on the side of the revolutionaries now. And things are heating up. It was a really good time. I was really glad to see it. You enjoy it?
I did. It feels like. Does it feel like Michael Lark's doing something a little different with the art, or it has been too long since I've dug into
Yeah, I didn't really notice anything terribly different. If I had to look at it right now, like it feels a little more liney.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a little less scratchy. It's a little less, maybe it's digital now, or something like something like that.
That could honestly be it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not that you can't. It's not that artists can't do analog stuff in digital. It's just that not all analog artists know how to recreate their art in digital, I think, is the way that it works.
I can barely take notes.
Well, exactly.
Also, I mean, he had a character who kind of looks like Tim Meadows, which that's fun for me when I read a Michael Lark book and I can put the ladies' man voice in there somewhere.
Yeah, that is true.
That's right.
Yeah. And what we've all been waiting for here.
VR Troopers Corner. Troopers 3, virtual reality. Josh, I know you're well aware of the VR Troopers lore.
What?
Obviously, this takes place in that's right, folks, the Power Rangers universe. We're back in the Ranger Gazebo. Go, go, Power Gazebo. Yes, it's true. It's true, Josh. We did it. We finally did it.
Sure.
This was written by Margaret Scott, art by Sebastian Perez, colors by J.P. Jordan, and letters by Taylor Esposito, which I wanted to highlight because you mentioned you know Taylor and have worked with Taylor before, and I'm not blowing smoke. The lettering was very good.
He's a pro. He's a good dude. He's a pro.
Like, I know that probably sounds facetious. It's truly not. I noticed how solid the lettering was because there's a couple of tricks that Taylor pulled that made this an easier read than it could have been. So for folks who don't know, VR Troopers was a spin-off show of Power Rangers. It's a team of 3. They have virtual reality powers. What that actually meant absolutely nothing in the late 90s. It was just an excuse for to have computers involved in their adventures. But they are connected to the Power Rangers. So it's again, it's teens with attitude. They have ratitude, or rad teens with attitude, and they morph or transform into their virtual VR trooper selves. And they're supposed to be really great fighters. And they have these like virtual reality weapons. And this book introduces a multiverse to the Angel Grove Altarian schema, which is like, I feel like the Power Rangers have had multiverse stuff for a while. So they spent a lot of time introducing the multiverse concept as if it was completely new to these characters, whereas like the Power Rangers have been dealing with Dracon and other alternate universe versions of the Rangers for a long time. The only real mention that this is like connected to the Power Rangers universe is the existence of Eltarians, which is the race. Obviously we all know Zordon's race as a century of warrior of Eltar, and the fact that the characters live in Angel Grove. And you know what, Josh? The cool one is named Ryan, so that tells you everything you need to know.
Wait, the lead one is a white dude named Ryan?
I know. Can you believe it?
Crazy.
So it turns out Ryan's dad had something to do with this multiversal rift. There's a shadowy bad guy that they fight at the beginning of the book who steals one of their virtualizers. That's right, the virtualizer. It's not a morphing coin anymore, folks. It's a virtualizer, and he shouldn't be able to use the virtualizer because the virtualizer can only be used by the VR trooper it is assigned to. But it seems like maybe this virtualizer will work on this guy, and so that's a big mystery we got to solve. So a lot of fun tapping into the VR Troopers universe. Can't wait for the Beetleborgs book that I'm sure is soon to follow, and I will continue to annoy Josh as much as possible on behalf of all you lucky listeners.
How good does this have to be for you to continue reading them? Like, that's what I kind of figured out. I don't even mean it in a bad way. We're all there, with something. But it's you want that.
I was not a VR Troopers kid nearly as much as I was a Power Rangers kid, but I still can't help but remember the theme song. And I'm sure all the listeners my age, the listeners and creeps watching on YouTube my age, will remember the song. And it was like Troopers 3 Virtual Reality. Yeah,
literally never heard it. I was vaguely familiar with the words VR Troopers, but not enough to put anything to it. The reason I had a little mix up before is because I made a substitution, and I moved this to the end. Assorted Crisis Events number 4. You read this? I don't think this was on your list.
No, it wasn't.
This is the single most depressing comic book I've ever read in my life. And I don't really want to get into it too much because I don't want to ruin it for anybody. But this whole series is about, they're like short stories about time displacement.
Oh, cool.
And
why is it so depressing then?
This one is about a guy who his life keeps going by and he keeps missing parts of it. And it's just like a sad, normal life. And he's like, oh, yeah, did we have a kid? I forgot his name. I haven't seen them for years. And before you know it, he's dying. It is so well done. It is such a well-rendered comic book. And it is so depressing because it is that feeling of like your life just flying by and you can't control it. It happens and it keeps moving faster. And then before you know it, it's over. It was rough in a really great way.
Interesting. I will have to go back and check that out. I read this series of novels called The Children of Memory, and the first one's called Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and it's like a spacefaring race of humans on like a colony ship, and they've got this guy who's like the historian who actually remembers the history of like what life was like back on Earth. So they don't need him most of the time, but every once in a while they come up against something where like, shit, we got to wake up the historian. So his entire life is this series of like, he gets frozen in a tube on this spaceship and then woken up when they need him. And he's like, wait, what's going on? They're like, we don't have time. You tell us of this thing about Earth so we can solve this problem. And then they put him back in the tube. And so his whole life is just this like series of getting unfrozen, and all of his friends and loved ones are like slightly older. And he's like, wait, what's going on? Yeah, it was like zany Arthur C. Clarke.
Everyone, and he's pretty zany to begin with, so that's fine. So yeah, there we go with those ones. We will remove that from there, and then we gotta go to I goes like this. I don't normally do this show, but here we go. Wait, nope, that's not the right thing either. I'm terrible. Let's talk about the ways that you can help support this show. First one would be, I'm looking at the comic book over here. I have 3 things to do. I can't do 3 things at once. It doesn't work that way. Here we go. Patreon.com/iFanboy. We are listener supported. People who are listening and watching this, not all of them, but because it is optional, support the show directly by going to Patreon and paying at a certain level to help support the show. Yeah, it makes a real difference. It's a real thing. That we need to help get the thing going. You can directly support the show, become a part of a great community on Discord and Facebook. Great communities. You can vote on the Patron Pick. You can get a Patron Power Live on the show. That's coming up. And you can join the monthly Patron Hangout at $10 or higher. You will get an ad-free version of this show given to you on Patreon. but also a day early for the audio. So it'll show up on Saturday as soon as we're able to do that. Also, there's the iFanboy after show where we talk about the comic books that we didn't get to in this show that we read this week, such as this week, which we will do with speedy alacrity.
It's the only kind of alacrity I have.
Yeah, I think that's the right word. That's one of my superpowers, is throwing out a word and not being sure what it meant. And 95% of the time I get it right. There's a discount. I guess we'll find out. I have enough smart people listening to this that if I get something wrong, they're like, no, that's the ability to grow fur. And I'll be like, no shit. There's a discount if you sign up for the full year at once, and you can send or receive gift memberships. That happens at patreon.com/ifanboy/gift. You add that on there. ifanboy.threadless.com is a merch store. You've heard of it. They make lots of great t-shirts. Well, they make our t-shirts, and they put our designs, of which there are 22 of them, on other items and shirts and sweatshirts. And I'm not sure, but I bet they have a baseball tee. And I love a baseball tee with a 3/4 length sleeve. I know that Connor has them. He loves those. Go over there. Let's see. ifanboy.com/support is on our website. It's a very basic link to PayPal. If you don't want to do any of that stuff, you want to find a way to support the show, do that there. I do not know what the upper limit for giving on a PayPal is, but what I'm saying to you is, let's find out together. You know what? Just keep hitting zeros and see what happens. Can you link like a Swiss bank account to PayPal? Is that a thing you can do?
No, PayPal works very poorly internationally.
No shit.
Yep.
I have no cause to have known that.
Didn't mean to cut you off to drop that little tidbit, but
I'm guessing Venmo does work well.
I don't know.
You don't? Oh, okay. When I use Venmo, I feel like that's Steve Buscemi, "Hey kids" thing. I'm like, look at me, I'm doing pretty much my grandmother. ifanboy.com/Amazon is a general shopping link.
Me that I do owe an older person some money on PayPal because they don't have Venmo. Let me make a note of that. Thanks.
General shopping affiliate link on Amazon, costs you nothing, helps us out. Finally, bookshop.org, which is an aggregator of local bookstores, so you can order books from the internet, but also support these great local stores all over the place. We will put links. I can go through any of the things while I was talking. There's Threadless, and then over here we have support, and then there's Amazon, and then of course bookshop.org. I talk like this a lot, but I don't. Again, 3 things. So bookshop.org is great. You should go there and check it out. If it's there, we put it on wherever it's appropriate, usually on Booksplode shows, because they don't do issues of comics. So there we are. And I got ahead of myself already, but it's okay. Those are all the books that we wanted to talk about and all the stuff that we wanted to go through. But you may know that the patrons vote on comics that they want us to read. And so here we are with the patron pick, which is News from the Fallout #1 by Chris Condon, with art by Jeremy Allen Love, letters by Hassan Atsmani Al-How, published by Image Comics. It was a tight race that the folks, the patrons, had to vote for, and it came down to 3 books with very close. In fact, this was a tie. This tied with the New History of the DC Universe, but it comes down to a coin flip. And here we are, News from the Fallout #1. Would you like to begin by sharing your thoughts?
I was looking forward to this because I like Chris Condon. I'm not as familiar with Jeffrey Allen Love. I don't know if I thought
he was in The Bear.
I know, right? Which, I would like to get very familiar with that. Haven't watched the new season yet, but I like Chris Condon. I like Fallout stories. I don't know how else to say that. Like I loved Oppenheimer. I loved the Fallout show. I love Chernobyl. I don't know.
I am fascinated by the concept of Fallout, and I remember hearing it for the first time. Not the specifics, but like, no, it's this stuff that falls and it looks like snow, but it's irradiated. What a terrifying thing.
To me, it's like a real life horror movie, right? So like,
yes.
One of the things I find like fascinating about Chernobyl is that like we use technology to create by accident a Medusa, a thing that if you look at, you die. Like that's to me, there's mythic symbolism built into nuclear power in the way that it has been used and abused. So this book, I thought the opening sequence in particular was incredibly compelling. I was like, whoa, like it's the art is super atmospheric. The idea there's like these soldiers who are supposed to be observing this nuclear test, but they change the distance that they are from the explosion. So it's that soldiers realize a little bit too late that like, yeah, you are the test. Like we are testing what happens to you when you are this close to a bomb. And can't say that I fully understood everything that happened after that point, but I thought it was like really creepy and ethereal and well realized in the art. And then one last thing I want to say is the menu, the fake menu for the restaurant at the end of the issue. I want to go to that restaurant real bad.
I read it closer than any essay I've at the end of a book for years. I mean, like I was just like, okay, yeah, these prices seem fair. I
don't know what I would order. It all looks good. Like that's
what I think this is. It's Dr. Strangelove. Plus
zombies.
Werewolves. I think they're werewolves or zombies or something like that.
Nuclear monster men.
You know, the George C. Scott character, whose name I should remember, but I don't. You know, who wants to protect his essence and he launches the nuclear war. You know, this is that, but at the test site in Nevada. And like like you were saying, the opening sequence with this sort of, I don't remember what's the guy's name, but there's like the one private who's like, hey, this isn't right. You know,
too close.
And, yeah. And everybody's like, yeah. And it's just, they're all being forced to do this terrible thing. Which reminds me again of another Stanley Kubrick movie, Paths of Glory, which is my favorite war movie, where it's about World War I and how the generals are sort of just blithely sending people off to die when they know there's no gains and there's no reason to do it, but they feel like they have to. This is only related to that in the sense of like war makes people do terrible things and you don't want the wrong people in charge. So there was a little bit at the beginning where I thought, I don't know if this art is good. And then I kind of realized as I was going through it that like, no, this is a very specific style that's happening here. It's
got some Bill Sienkiewicz in it.
There's Bill Sienkiewicz, there's Ben Templesmith, but there's a bunch of it that reminds me of, I tried to find this. I tried to place it. Like if you look at it like sort of this, I feel like there was like war propaganda films or posters or animation or something.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of Jendi Tartarovsky, the guy who did like Samurai Jack.
I think maybe there's something in Fantasia like this.
That could be it too. Yeah.
But it's at first I was like, I don't know if this is just too lo-fi, and then I realized like, no, this is really deliberate. And as soon as like you understand like somebody's doing something for a purpose, sometimes that makes it better. I don't know if you're supposed to realize it or it should just work, but I sort of got the visuals they were going for. There's many pages with no words outside of sound effects.
And I like that after the bomb fell, when the fallout is falling, there's also like the background, the sky it looks like what happens to film when you expose it to radiation.
Yeah.
Like it's the neutron bullets hitting the film and exposing the silver phosphate. You know, like that's a thing.
Yeah.
It's just
Private Russo. I just think that not a lot happens, and that's not a bad thing. But I think that the intentionality that went into the visual presentation of this, and what is excellent storytelling through the entire thing, is like sequences of just chases and using the black and white negative space.
I love the shot of the rabbit in the foreground with the Jeep driving towards it with the glowing eye, and then you see the rabbit, small size, hopping away from the restaurant sign.
And like also, so Private, what's his name? I just said it. Private Russo, he's scared. There's a lot of really bad things going on. And when he's taking off, like he gets in the Jeep and he gets out, and at one point he just throws his fist and he's like, yeah. And it just was like, there was like this tiny bit of levity that I felt like we needed to sort of remind us, that this is a made up story.
Well, that was, I remember I saw an interview with John Boyega around the time Force Awakens came out, and he was talking about like how he landed the part. And he went back and watched the original Star Wars movies, and he said, oh, the tone of this movie is we're all about to die. Isn't this fun? So like, it's very much like a woohoo, like we barely escaped death again. And isn't this fun? And that, that to me is there's a special sauce there in that juxtaposition.
And then, when he shows up at the diner and he's like, bar the way, like it's all business because there is an urgent threat. Everything keeps moving. Nothing. Once that bomb goes in this movie, nothing stops. And then finally, I really liked this. Can you tell? There's a bit in the end after the menu that actually explains information that you probably would be helpful to know about what just happened, including sort of, the leader, General McCoy. At the beginning. Now it says all stuff that you would have known by reading it, but
Chris Condon has shown himself to be very proficient at providing back matter that is not overly onerous to read or consume, but gives you some extra context to the story being told.
And you could get away without it, as I'm sure I probably have. But if we must do back matter, then we should at least do it well. Any further thoughts?
No, I'm ready to go through our list.
All right, so let's go with ratings.
I'm
going
to give this a strong 4.
I'm also going to give it a strong 4.
What do you think comes with the Chuck Wagon breakfast?
I mean, it's got to be beef of some kind. I'm guessing like a chopped steak.
I'm a huge biscuits and gravy guy, so I would definitely get the biscuits and gravy at a restaurant.
Yeah.
Sourdough hotcakes sound good too, though.
Actually, the Chuck Wagon breakfast is... Oh, I was going to say it's cheap. It's $1, but it's the most expensive thing there. So I don't think it's pancakes. Sourdough hotcakes. That's where I am, buddy.
Yeah.
Anyway, would you have read this without it being the patron pick?
Yes.
Yeah, I would have and did. And then finally, are you sticking with it? I know this answer.
Yes.
Yeah, of course I am. This was fantastic. I definitely recommend it. It's a nice piece of comic book art that really takes advantage of the visual element in a way that a lot of books don't so much anymore.
Good job, patrons.
Yeah, absolutely. Which brings us to the patron power. Every week, a patron gives at the $5 or higher level at patreon.com/iFanboy. We give them a dumb superpower.
Yeah, so Hugh Allyn, which is Hugh Allyn.
Don't look at that.
We've talked about some books that went pretty dark. You and I have both been stretched a little thin lately, much like Mr. Fantastic himself. You've mentioned that we can't do 3 things at once. Well, Hugh Allyn
can barely do 2.
Hugh Allyn has a solution for you. Hugh Allyn can clone himself whenever he needs to multitask. But when the clone finishes the task assigned to them, the clone dies.
Like a real pure person would die?
Yeah, just like crumples into a heap on the floor.
That sounds like you'd really want to like think hard about.
And Hugh, I don't think Hugh could be convicted of any crime here, but he's still got like a body to deal with.
I feel like the older I get, the more I appreciate if you have to get rid of a body, you're in for some hurting.
You need a boat.
Yeah.
You need a boat with a very poor security system at your docking location. Like no cameras, no dockmaster. You just need a boat that you can take out to sea with very little questions asked and very little record that you did it.
And you have to know where the water is deep. You can't just assume that the tide isn't gonna take things in or that it's like bottomless. It might just be you could get someplace you go way out there, but you're only 10 feet deep. You want to weigh it down?
Oh, sure. I mean, the Atlantic is a passive tectonic margin. It's really much easier on the West Coast where it drops off much more steeply.
I want to say it was Pete Holmes, but I'm not sure. Maybe it was John Mulaney. There was a comedian who was talking about how digging a hole is really hard. Like you could just work all day and you're 6 inches in. I did that here. New England's worse. It's all rocks.
Well, I remember, I had to dig a hole here at work and we had to go and literally rent a jackhammer. I've never used a jackhammer before, but we had to get a jackhammer. The thing that I always think about now when it comes to digging a hole is when we read Seven Eves and the group of people that survive underground, sorry, spoilers for Seven Eves, they couldn't expand their tunnel network because you can't dig a tunnel without creating volumetrically more dirt than you remove because it's no longer compacted in the original space. So like the fact that like you're creating more volume by digging, even though you're trying to remove volume from the space that you're digging into. I was just like, that's a fascinating insight that I never would have thought about if Neil Stephenson hadn't put it in that book.
Which explains why in the Shawshank Redemption, they needed a way to dispose of the dirt.
right
out of their pant legs. And just imagine their socks always had a little bit of dirt in them.
Oh man, imagine if Hugh was in prison and had to multitask something. Suddenly multitask an escape attempt.
Well, what you've got problems right there is if the body is discovered by somebody, it's a perfect genetic match. And then you've got problems. We're like, well, why are you still here? Who's this?
Very much like out of Alcatraz. They're all declared dead.
It's true.
Sorry, Hugh. True. Blessing and a curse.
Let's move along to our first email. You want to read it?
Sure. Ken from the Great White North. You are quite vocal. I don't know which you he's referring to, but you are quite vocal about how certain characters shouldn't be dead in comic. Well, then that's y'all, Ken. We have a word for it. Y'all are quite vocal about how certain characters shouldn't be dead in comics. See every episode of iFanboy for the past 6 years when Alfred is brought up. But what deaths in comics do you believe were very important and should stick? Captain Marvel. Done.
So, do you have any? I thought I got a chance to think about this a little bit beforehand. So, Captain Marvel, that's one, and I think, other than some time travel business, they haven't brought him back.
Right.
I think that has a lot to do with the fact that they've decided that he's not all that marketable now, and it wouldn't be worth it. Or they haven't. I mean, obviously, they haven't thought of the story. There's people who have come back that I think shouldn't have come back. I think that the "don't ever break it" rule was Bucky. I think that they broke it to pretty good effect. And
what's interesting to me is, I agree with you. The interesting one to me is Gwen Stacy.
Gwen Stacy was going to be the first one. I was like, don't do it. But go ahead.
But the interesting thing is, because of Spider-Verse stuff, there's now a spider-powered version of Gwen Stacy that I know a lot of kids, like my niece, loves Ghost Spider, loves the Gwen Stacy version.
That's a great design.
It's a great design. The character, it's a well-executed character from a story standpoint. You know, it's a different enough spin on the origin of the spider person in that universe, with Peter becoming the lizard and all this other stuff. And it's fascinating to me that, like, my niece has no context of the getting thrown off the bridge and the thwip and the neck snap. Like, she doesn't know any of that. She just knows Ghost Spider as a character she really likes, and you get like a cool girl version of Spider-Man. So that to me is like they found a weird workaround that somehow doesn't break the sanctity of the 616 Gwen Stacy having died, but still gives that character a place to shine for a new generation.
I mean, the only thing I would say about that, though, is that yes, it's named Gwen Stacy, and they're supposed to be Gwen Stacy, but it's not really any of the same. It doesn't matter. Could have been anybody. Like, that name was for old people, but could have been anybody. I think but in terms of like original Peter Parker, she can't come back because she's his. That's the lodestone. Like, it's all around.
Well, and then there's Ben Parker, right?
Yeah, that's another one. Never. Like, that's a bad. It's just like I'm sure they've done it, but it's too easy of an emotional manipulation. They cheat. They use time travel or multiverse.
Thomas and Martha Wayne, Jor and Laura L. Like,
I feel like Jor-El's pretty much around most of the time.
Jor-El feels like a character that is part of Superman's life, even though he theoretically died.
Well, I mean, even in the motion picture, like they had him.
I love Ghost in the Machine, Russell Crowe. That's one of my favorite parts of that not great movie.
I had another one in it. Jason Todd is the other one. He's back. I don't think he should have ever come back. There was no room for him. That was the job of our pal Judd Winnick, who's a great comic book writer, and I think that I think it was even the same week that the Bucky thing came back.
Yeah, we talked about that last time I was on the show.
But Jason Todd shouldn't have. He should have left that for all sorts of reasons. I think I think the character was ill-conceived to begin with, and so therefore, no. I mean, I think the Sentry should stay dead, but just for personal reasons.
Sure. When does Jean Grey finally stay dead?
Never. There's too many fetishes wrapped up.
I mean, I'm glad they brought I'm trying to think of I'm trying to think of deaths in comics that were significant when they happened, but I'm glad the character's back. Like I'm glad Colossus is back. Like his death issue is a great issue.
Oliver Queen should have never died. Hal Jordan should have never died.
But I also think they could have left Hal dead, and I wouldn't have been. I'm not that connected.
Yeah.
Barry Allen. Barry, I'm glad Barry's back.
Yeah, that was good. Superman. I think in the end he never really died. I think that was the point, wasn't it?
Yes, he was in a Kryptonian hibernation stasis, something. The Odin sleep. The Odin sleep.
Should Odin be dead?
Yeah, I'm fine. I mean, I feel like with I always subscribe to the top 10 version of the way that those sorts of pantheon of gods work is that let's all play the game where we throw things at Balder and then they kill Balder and remember that issue top 10 where that the god bar and the cops think they need to investigate the death of Balder and one of the other guys hang on, just wait a minute, Balder pops back up and they just redo it all again because they're gods. It's an endless cycle of birth and death and Ragnarok and I'm okay with it when it's the god characters. I'm okay with the cyclicity of it all. It's meant to recur. It's meant to
repeat. Yeah.
So I tend to think more of the human level people. Elektra, she's died a couple of times, right? Karen Page.
I think Karen Page definitely needed to stay dead. I was gonna say Elektra would seem that way, but a lot of these characters have a fulcrum, like a hinge point that is important for their character. So for Batman, it's his parents, and then they sort of bolstered that with Jason Todd. Matt Murdock, I feel like he's so guilty about everything that there's always enough other things you can bring back anybody so
there's a lot of parents who need to stay dead in comics. Like Battling Jack Murdock needs to stay dead.
Sure.
I had another one in my head and I lost it. Oh, parent figures. One that I'm actually not happy is dead and think should come back, and I should have
Alfred.
I should have known it when Ken ended his email with the word stick is Splinter. See what I did there?
Yeah. Wait, so he shouldn't come? See, he shouldn't have been dead.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I'm in the current Ninja Turtles comic, which is great. I'm not happy that Splinter is dead.
Right.
And being portrayed by an equally dead rat.
Well, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if they're having a group hallucination.
Well, I think that death should not stick. Splinter should come back.
Okay.
I like Splinter as a part of the Turtles and their adventures.
Yeah. I also just think because to me, that's still a children's cartoon in my head. And I know that's some of the comics are, but I'm like, you got to give them leeway and you can't kill off the main characters in those because
they're also they're young enough and immature enough that they still need a mentor. They haven't graduated from needing that level of mentorship to succeed.
It's a good point because in the current book, the only thing that is keeping any of them even close to sane or reasonable is the dead rat.
The memory
and so without him being there, they don't have not even Leonardo, the good one, it's just the wherewithal to sort of behave and know how to, make room for other people, turtles, whichever. let's want to try one more.
Sure.
All right, here we go. Oh, add a stage. There we go. This is long, so I'll read it. I put it in 2 sheets, but we'll go through quick. Here's a question I've been thinking about since he put in a lot of details, and I got to respect that. I've been thinking about since you guys answered the email on episode 981 regarding secret identities or lack thereof in modern books. But really, I've been thinking about this since Claremont got run off the X-Men in the early 90s. You guys have often correctly said that pretty much all books are writing for the trade, and the soap opera aspects of comics that was around for decades doesn't really exist anymore, which brings me to my question. Are there any big 2 books that still attempt to keep some semblance of that Bronze Age soap opera aspect? It seems like with dozens and dozens of books that come out every week, there's room for at least a couple that follow that old formula and might appeal to old school readers to crave it. Maybe the answer is that that's a losing formula and won't move units so that Warner Disney overlords won't allow it, but it seems like a shame.
So
it seems like a shame.
To me, one of the issues of the MCUification of the movies and the books that have come out since is they're not sexy anymore. There's no There's no like romance. There's no, and so I think
yeah, that's a good point.
Like you barely get a kiss in any of the MCU movies, and not that there needs to be romance, and like, but to me, that's romance is a huge part of soap operas, right? It's constantly who's sleeping with who and like you get glimmers of it because like Hawkeye has slept with everyone, and they will reference that, but he's not currently like courting or wooing anyone, at least not any of the books I've read lately. You know, like there was the recent Iron Man arc where Tony and Emma Frost were like pretending to be married, but like weren't really a couple. You know, they were flirting with it, but not.
But that will they or won't they thing about it was very intriguing, and it was. You're right. Like it's disappeared a little bit from stuff because it's weird. Because in comics now, you know, you're going to talk about Clint and Natasha or whoever.
Well,
like it's always
in the Thunderbolts book,
right? But it's always sort of in the background now, like it's already been accepted and everybody's like it already happened. So there's no tension about it going forward. And when I remember being a kid and I think of West Coast Avengers or any of those kind of team books from the mid late 80s. And obviously before that, you know, there was a little bit of like, hey, Tiger or Tigra, as it were. And that's not really around anymore. It's really interesting. Every romantic relationship that I can think of in comics now already exists. And so those characters get back together and then they have a history. So Bruce Wayne and Zatanna have a history. And
Ollie and Dinah have history.
Right. And everybody used to date or still like, and it's not will they or won't they? It's they already did. So they're not doing that. And I think that
and there's no romance, at least that I've seen in any of the books with younger characters who don't have those established histories. So like I've never seen Miles Morales go on a date. I've never seen Kamala Khan.
He's dating the Vulture's daughter.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
I got off, but that was the thing that was happening. You know, Kamala Khan, they kind of have a reason for not, but it's a little, I don't know. No, it's right though, but like sort of the adult superheroes don't.
So I think, you know,
arouse.
The place where you still get the sense of the soap opera in those books is when they let Rainbow Rowell write anything, and she does and she usually includes some romance, and it's fun and it's sexy and it doesn't detract from the super heroics that she is writing about when she does those books. And so like the most recent She-Hulk run, I'm hoping the Runaways books, you know, the previous Runaways book had some of it. I'm hoping the current Runaways book gets a little bit of that. Kieran Gillen did it in Young Avengers well. So like I think you almost have to have that it's nowadays those arcs have to occur in the characters who don't have the huge backstories where Scott and Jean have already gotten together and broken up and been married and now he's with Emma.
And you know who their soulmates are, and it's kind of weird. And Strange Academy was pretty good with that for a while.
And Lois and Clark have been happily married for a long time now. So that, you know, for a long time there was a love triangle that existed between two people, and that was like interesting, right? It's she loves Superman, Clark loves Lois. Lois doesn't have time of day for Clark, and like that's an interesting dynamic.
So to get back to the original question, what are the big two books that still attempt to keep some semblance of that Bronze Age soap opera aspect? And the first answer that came to my head was pretty much Amazing Spider-Man. Over the last few years, certainly through the Zeb Wells run, had a lot of that, and he dated other people, and he's doing it now. And
I think the other soap opera aspect that we didn't touch on is there have to be a lot of plot lines running at once,
and they don't necessarily end. And that was the thing through that Zeb Wells thing. Is there was ideas that were brought up in the very beginning, back to Nick Spencer's run, that were present the entire time. I mean, there was, you know, a year or so of that Tombstone and his daughter, you know, storyline that was kind of going on in the background, coming in, going out, gangland, all that stuff, gang wars. That's a really good one.
And I think that's why it was easier with the X-Men in that era, because I think it's also easier with the team book. You need a big cast of characters to have a soap opera, and they need to be characters that are constantly interacting in different circumstances, and there needs to be, you know, backstabbing and people and drama and people turning on other people, and a moth just flew by. And
a bird
said help. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
The drawback to having that good light now.
I'm literally drawing them in. But you know, like the Claremont Jim Lee X-Men book, it literally had them like in steamy showers together. Like
well, it takes a certain kind of guy to write that.
And draw it. Another kind of guy to draw it.
Yeah. I wish I really wanted to be able to think of more of them, but there's just not in that way. We just sort of let it rip for a while. It's still story based. You still know where you are, and the stories last so long. You said you had multiple issue stories in the past, but like 3, 2, but then some other aspect of it would keep. It's still there. Doesn't feel the same. It's funny. It's interesting. That romance thing is like, that's not the cause of it. That's not the root of it, but it's like a strong marker of it. You know what I mean? Like, if this is here and it's over a long time and that's happening, I like that. That's a good take, I think. So that is, if you want to write to us, you can do that at contact@ifanboy.com. I don't know how to hide this. And you can, and if you want to send us something about the Media Explode, our non-comic show, make sure you put Media Explode in the subject line. Thank you for the emails. You guys who write them, Ken, big ups to Ken, who's so good at it. You're helping us do the show and giving us great topics to think about just when we think that we have run dry. All right. So here's what's coming up. 3 weeks ago, there was a book explode about Ronin that Connor and I did. Interesting discussion. Didn't necessarily love the book, but appreciate its value. 2 weeks ago was a Media Explode. We talked about Jaws, the 50th anniversary. I don't know. My feed always looks like this, but if your feed doesn't normally look like this, it's full of Jaws stuff. And I also, by the way, have enough Jaws stuff. I think I'm good for a while, unless something's amazing. And then we also talked about Brian Wilson, his life, and I was going to say untimely passing, but he was an old man and he did a lot of great things. And then coming up this month in July, we got a Media Explode where we will do the old man and the old movies segment on the 80s BMX thriller Rad. We're going to be talking about Superman and the Fantastic Four on special editions. And then I'm waiting to hear on who that Talksplode guest is going to be. There's feelers out there. I'm searching for a whale and I'm not getting the whale. So still working on it, but
don't know, guys. He's Ahabing. He's going back to the lighthouse.
Mm-hmm. You know it.
You can find our library and a whole crap load of shows over at ifanboy.com and wherever podcasts are sold. Never miss out on a show and find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes out by following us at iFanboy Comics on Instagram and Threads, at ifanboy.com on Blue Sky, and follow us individually at Ryan Haupt on Instagram and at J.A. Flanagan on Instagram. Don't miss former iFanboy writer Jeff Reed's video deep dives into forgotten comic book minutia every Tuesday and Friday across our social media channels and on YouTube. I've watched some of those. They're a lot of fun.
I have the feeling that if I had put other words in there, you would have just read them like Ron Burgundy.
Yes.
Gotta remember that for the future. Hey, consider writing us a review or leaving a star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you get podcasts. If that is an option that exists there, that helps us out a lot. If you are listening on Pocket Casts, you need to be subscribed and have downloaded a few episodes before you can rate it. I would be curious what amount of our audience actually uses Pocket Cast, making it worth it to say that. Subscribe to youtube.com/ifanboy, where you can watch the video version of this. If you're listening to it, there is a video version. And if you are watching it already, then this is useless information to you because you know how that worked. You can also find those Jeff Reed comic book deep dives over on YouTube as well, and an archive of all of our old video shows that we did from 2007 to 2012. You can join us. Today will be Ryan and I on the iFanboy After Show exclusively on Patreon, where we will share our thoughts on all the other books that did not make this rundown, and there's quite a bit of them. Yeah, it's a damn fine reward for patrons at the $10 or higher level. That's patreon.com/ifanboy. We made it. It was not a perfect technical show, but I can say it was better than the last time I did it. I think, and we got through it. Anything else?
I think your doctorate for podcasting is in the mail. I'm right.
Oh, I thought you were about to say it was in danger.
No, I think,
and I was going to be like, fair enough.
No one has a perfect defense. The committee always has some comments and feedback, but that's okay. We're all still learning, all of us, growing. I think
I've just gotten a new life goal.
It's a growth mindset.
All right. Who are you?
I'm Ryan.
I'm Josh. See you later.
That's what it said in the script. I'm Ryan.